Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I'm your host for tonight's forum, James Lonergan. Our forum tonight is on the topic of gun control and whether or not stricter gun laws will decrease gun violence. Many proponents of gun control state the Second Amendment was designed for militia and gun violence would be reduced if gun control laws were stricter. Opponents of gun control state that it's an individual's right to own a weapon and they need weapons to defend themselves. First, for stricter gun laws, I would like to introduce Joshua Kessler. Joshua is from Gonzales, and in his sophomore year, he is studying biology and pre-med. Joshua is a part of Kappa Sigma fraternity and aspires to be a physician and hope to improve the world as best he can. Joshua's hobbies are tennis, basketball, and chess. Without further hesitation, please welcome Joshua Kessler.
Once I got the news I'd be speaking tonight, I immediately began digging deep into the numbers. I came across a troubling figure. Nearly 240,000 guns were reported stolen in 2016. I didn't realize the significance of this figure until I was faced with how lenient our country is with mandatory reporting laws. Crime-ridden cities like Independence, Las Vegas, Memphis, and St. Louis are all excluded in these laws. In fact, only 11 states are required to report their guns as lost or stolen. Is it unreasonable to conclude that there's a relationship between violent crime and stolen guns? I got my data from the FBI and the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms. Growing up, I never really thought much about guns. My first encounter with guns was with one of my best pals to this day. His family has a lot of land, and we were firing at targets in the wooded area near his place. Of course, I missed the target the first time, but who doesn't? Ever since then, I've handled all sorts of guns, from shotguns to rifles to handguns. Guns are a milestone in how far we've come from just sticks and stones. We all want a safer community with an unhindered constitution. The issue isn't the guns themselves, it's how they're sometimes used. I had the luck of having a recreational relationship with weapons, but others are not so lucky. How many people have to die before this is at the forefront of our attention? My opponent and I both agree that the laws need some reform, but the direction of that reform is our point of disagreement. Resolved, stricter gun laws can lessen gun violence. I'm arguing this for two reasons. First, laws help us keep track of guns, and second, research helps us make knowledgeable decisions. First, reporting laws help control the illegal movement of weapons, while age requirements would help control the legal movement of weapons. Reporting laws are effective in tracking illegal weapons. Less than a quarter of the country has passed privately owned gun theft reporting laws. These laws are huge because they give the authorities a head start on pursuing the black market. We don't know how many guns are on the secondary market. But with reporting laws passed, law enforcement would have a much more narrow view of the guns that are illegally possessed, giving them an advantage in tracking these weapons down before they have the chance to take a life. With reporting laws helping control the illegal movement of weapons, raising the age to legally purchase a firearm from 18 to 21 would be a good change to make in the legal movement of weapons. A study published by the National Center of Biotechnology explains how the brain hasn't grown to its peak at age 18. The prefrontal cortex is one of these areas still maturing. The prefrontal cortex is responsible for executive functioning. A study by Dr. Sarah Johnson and her colleagues describes these functions as mental skills needed for motivated behavior like planning, memory, and attention. Executive functioning in a young adult's brain, like me, shows slightly less efficiency in planning, attention, use of feedback, and mental inflexibility, leading to slightly lessened judgment and decision-making abilities. The young adult's brain is superior, though, with qualities like courage, reflexes, and assertiveness. Regardless, judgment and decision-making are the qualities a gun owner needs to have. It's a lot of responsibility, after all. Controversially, at 18, you can enlist in the military. But there's such a difference between the military environment and the civilian one. Our men and women in the military are heavily trained in firearm usage, safety, and are among the most disciplined people on the planet. The civilian environment is an entirely different story. After the point of sale, the decision made with that gun is entirely up to its buyer. The young adult's brain is extremely versatile, but we've all heard our grandparents say it, wisdom comes with age. Research is thin on legislative effect on gun violence. It's not because we just forgot, but because of a piece of legislation passed in 1996 meant to stop this research in its tracks. Which leads me to my next point. Second, we can lessen gun violence when law and research are used together. In 1996, CDC gun violence research stopped. With heavy lobby influence from multiple organizations, the ban's reason is up for interpretation. This legislative writer's author, former Congressman Republican Jay Dickey of Arkansas, regrets his action. In a letter written by Dickey to Mike Thompson, chair of the House of Gun Violence Prevention Task Force, Dickey is honest about his mistake. He says, "It is my position that somehow or some way we should slowly but methodically fund such research until a solution is reached. Doing nothing is no longer a viable solution." Jay Dickey couldn't have said it any better. Scientific research is the way to go about finding a solution to gun violence. Gun violence isn't the only violent crime, but it's at the top of the food chain. A bank won't be robbed anytime soon by a baseball bat. If this scientific method can put man on the moon, there's no way it can fail here. When research is conducted, it shows a positive effect between legislative intervention and gun violence. A study conducted by Dr. Olivia Kaiser and her colleagues says 9 laws, like the 2 I've already mentioned, universal background checks, ammunition background checks, and others, were associated with a decreased mortality rate. However, the study also showed that some laws were not effective in reducing gun mortality. This shows that research isn't cheating for anybody's side, but will lead to the most effective laws and point out the ineffective ones. Some laws may inconvenience the lawful citizens, like a longer wait to receive a firearm or some extra paperwork. But at that point, it's a matter of the greater good. A little inconvenience is a small cost to pay to end mass murder. In summary, stricter gun laws can lessen gun violence. This is for 2 reasons. First, laws help us keep track of guns. Reporting laws are an effective way to track the illegal movement of guns, and changes to age requirements help us control the legal movement of guns. Second, research aids in making knowledgeable decisions. We need to encourage, not ban, research on gun violence. And we need to accept that when this research is done, the findings show that there is a relationship between legislative intervention and less gun violence. Violent gun crime rates are huge with our current system installed. My opponent and I agree a change must be made. That particular change is the matter of this debate tonight. It's our responsibility as moral beings to make it. Vote pro that stricter gun laws can lessen gun violence. The figure of 240,000 firearms stolen in 2016 is an understatement. Nevertheless, that is a 6-digit number in the hundreds of thousands of firearms unaccounted for. Take a second to recognize the size of this figure because it's enormous. Find yourself in favor of reporting laws. Let's make our next move one of knowledge. Thank you.